You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast.
And I'm Hanna, sexologist, sensologist, lovable weirdo, oversharer, and not sorry about it.
And I'm Freya, a lixothymic counsellor, mum, chaos wrangler, and happy little steamroller.
Whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, our podcast is for everybody and every brain that has ever been labelled.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm Hanna.
And I'm Freya.
And today we are going to break it down for difficult.
We sure are. And we're having a little bit of a chuckle here because it's been a bit of a morning in the house. Yeah.
I got to watch the most beautiful mum just be absolutely incredible with her daughter this morning. I was so impressed by how you handled that situation.
Thank you. So I think a lot of, and it's funny in the moment, that is not how I was viewing myself. I had a different sort of lens of what was going on, but we had what I call a fairly typical neurodivergent morning in our house relating to finding socks before school. And I lost count at I think close to 20 different pairs of socks we were trying on.
I was impressed by the variety. and I have to admit, I envied the one that had the wings.
Oh, yeah,
outside.
they were good fun socks.
Yeah.
Really good fun socks. Yeah,
there were unicorn ones, there was rainbow ones. It was incredible, but every single one got chucked in the reject bin.
It was they were itchy, they were uncomfortable.
It hurt my toes.
All of the things. And it's when you're in that moment and it's you see the clock ticking down and it's just oh, man. And it's ticking down, and you just you can feel in yourself the emotions welling up and everything in your body is just screaming in your head. Stop being difficult.
I could see it in your face. You were getting so frustrated. And then you took this beautiful breath and you just shifted it so that your anxiety was not making her more anxious.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that, that moment when you take that step back. And you pause and you recognise it. And that moment of what was happening internally is there's this amazing woman at school she's absolutely a phenomenal mum. And she's got 3 kids and she comes to school every day. She's a teacher herself and arrives to school with the kids, and the kids are always in the best mood and they're just always so happy when they arrive. And she comes every day so relaxed. Just never looks like there's a bad or a hard morning. And start of last year in the canteen working together, and I said, how do you do it? How do you? And she goes, well, it's really easy. She's like, my goal is it's not to get them to school on time, because quite often they'd be late and they'd just be strolling in. And for me, I was late and I was like a hurricane, into the school gates, like most parents are. She goes, my goal is not to get them there on time. My goal is to get them there ready to learn.
Yeah.
And I was just in that moment, I was just oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? But, it's that thing, because when their certain nervous system's rattled, they will be at school on time.
And they're dysregulated for hours afterwards.
And they may not actually, might as well not be there. And so in that moment, that voice came into my head and I said, okay, well, what's more important? Going to school this one particular way, we get to see the crossing guard. He's amazing. He waves at everyone. Or do you need more time to work out what socks are right? And she goes, the socks. And then that suddenly...
It took the pressure off.
And then I was able to come back to myself, and we found the right...
They're unicorn, by the way.
They are
They still had unicorns on them.
They're technically bed socks. I did not say that. They've got the grippy on the bottom and they're fluffy and they're winter bed socks. It's 28 degrees here in Perth today. But I'm you know what? They're socks and they're on, and she's chosen them and she's comfortable and she's happy, and we're out the door and we're going.
100%.
But, it's those type of things that happen all the time when we're neurodivergent, and you get this response, so you get this reaction. And it's people label you difficult.
Yeah.
And it's you're being difficult. And it's actually in that situation, she's had a lot of change this week. A lot of things have been difficult.
Yep, crazy Auntie Hannah's come to town.
And she's she wants to spend every moment with Auntie, and so she doesn't want to go to school. There's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of adjustment to routine. So, and we talked about that as well, that, is she feeling we call it the red floor. There's this amazing series of books called Hey Warrior that talk about anxiety for kids. They're life-changing. I'll put a link in the chat, but they're just an amazing way of reframing it. And, we're on the red floor. Sometimes everything can feel uncomfortable. Everything can feel bad. And so, taking some breaths you know, and trying to work that through to find a pair of socks. But like it wasn't, I don't think it was about the socks necessarily today, but she was just in such a heightened state that everything was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the more heightened I got, the more uncomfortable the socks got.
Absolutely. And in most parents, I can imagine, and I've seen, in that situation would just have an absolute meltdown and just say, why are you being so difficult?
Yeah.
And that's really where it comes from. It's in this moment, I have this need. You are not meeting my need. And so I'm going to label you difficult because you're not being easy. You're not being agreeable or passive or just letting me get to the next thing that I want to do. And it's like it's socks. It shouldn't be hard necessarily. And for the record, I think it was, I want to say about 27 minutes, no, probably more than that. I think we cracked about 37 minutes of trying different socks on and working through different strategies. So, and it's hard when you're in that position and you're just like, and I need to get on with my day and I've got this podcast to record, and it's actually, well, none of that is helping this moment right Absolutely.
here. But and it just also reminded me so much too of, you know, Dr. Ross Green. I think we've referenced him in another episode as well, but he's a phenomenal child psychologist, and he's been doing it for 40 years. And his whole strategy is around, you know, doesn't believe in behavioralism and behavior management strategies. His whole approach, and it's the collaborative and proactive solutions model. He's got an amazing not-for-profit called Lives in the Balance, which I encourage everyone to check out. But his whole ethos is kids will do well if they can. And he's generous, and he says parents will do well if they can also. And I attended 2 days of his training this year on his framework, and it's all about when kids act out and there's difficult behaviour, it's their way of saying, I can't meet the expectation, right? You know, I'm struggling to meet the expectation that's been put on with me. So we either have a choice of adjusting our expectation or working with them to help solve the problem.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't come up against. P.S. We're going to be doing a lot of sock shopping this weekend. But, you know, it's a really, really powerful way of looking at it. And I think for a lot of us neurodivergent people, like, it's a model for kids. But I think for all of us, you know, when we're coming up against resistance, when we're seeing things that are hard and those moments we're digging our heels in, or we're fighting or we're rebelling, to actually go, where's this coming from? And, you know, and just being kind and compassionate to ourselves, that we all have those moments, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're being difficult.
I think that when we talk about reparenting ourselves as well, I certainly feel at times like my inner child will have a tanty and a meltdown, and there's this kind of separation of what's happening internally to externally. And that wouldn't necessarily need to happen if I was able to ground myself in that moment. So my inner child would essentially be able to, and I know that inner child for a lot of people, it's a bit wishy-washy, right?
Frou-frou-rah-rah.
But it genuinely is one of those moments where I look back on my childhood and I go, okay, in this moment, how would I have wanted the adult around me to behave? And then me as the adult behaves that way.
Yep.
And I find it so powerful to kind of calm that inner monologue, or, you know, calm the boiling over of the, you know, the pasta in the saucepan and things like that. That's the, you know, the equivalent of putting the wooden spoon over the top of the
stopping it boiling over. Yeah.
And it's enough. And then it's great to be able to journal about and reflect later on. So I find those things to be really, really powerful, because if there was an unmet need in your childhood that the people around you weren't able to meet, being able to reparent yourself with the tools that we have available today is such a powerful thing to be able to do.
And it's really interesting as you say that, right? And I know we've done a bit of pre-work for this podcast, and I think I learned a lot about you in this difficult episode, right? Because difficult is like when we met and we were like 11 or 12 or whatever, right? Difficult is like not a word I would have associated with you in any way.
I was passive.
Shape or form. Like, you were just like the easiest person, like, to get along with. Nothing was a drama. Nothing was like whatever. You'd just be like, yeah, okay, you know, like on to the next thing. And so like I struggled to reconcile this word with you, but I don't think I understood why
until recently.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of find that when I look back again, I've got this splitting, like crossing roads kind of situation, where I could have gone one way and I could have doubled down. I could have been really like, no, this is my way or the highway, and kept going. But there were circumstances when I was growing up where that wasn't going to fly because the power matrix was not set up in my favor.
Yeah.
And I also didn't understand how all of that worked. So there was this whole kind of friction until I found that if I was deemed to be seen as creating the friction, then it would either come with the label of difficult or punishment or ostracization or humiliation or whatever the case may be. And so I took the path that was the easiest. And so I became really quite passive, and I learnt how to survive and navigate. And I didn't have any siblings, so I was very much like, I didn't have a lot of negotiation skills back then. And so it sort of became this role where I would become the mediator or the peacekeeper. And I think difficult for me also became avoidant, because I didn't know how to navigate those situations. It was easier to smooth them over than it was to create waves and ride those waves to, some sort of conclusion. So, if you ever sort of looked under, the rug, for example, you would see probably a big black hole of all the things that I'd swept under there over the years. And so being able to take them out and look at them. And again, I think this podcast has been quite cathartic for me in so many ways, because I've been able to take some of the things out from under the bed. I've been, literally grabbing the monster by the the ankle, if they have ankles, and pulling them out into the light and actually examining them and being able to say, okay, well, what's the reason for me being so passive?
Yeah.
And, and even coming up with stories. Like there was one, and it's, it's something that I'm sure probably everybody's forgotten, but it's something that I remember. And it's wild what you remember, right? It's wild the things that you hang on to. And then if you have the opportunity to share that with somebody else, most of the time they're going to say, God, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, because the person who is usually the center of it, who's the cause of the harm, has absolutely no memory of that, but you hold on to it because it was central to a core memory or a narrative that you create. And so this one story was, I was in primary school, and my school had just gotten a whole series of like new softballs, and they'd mixed the new ones in with the old ones. And I picked up a new one, and I think it was the last one that was new. And, one of the popular girls came over and she was like, oh, that's mine. And I was like, well, no, it's not. I picked it up. Like, it's mine.
So anyone could get any ball.
Anyone could get any ball from the pile.
Just grab one out of the bag.
Because I was going up next. And she said, no, I want to use that one. There's plenty there. Why can't you just pick a different one? And I was really fortunate at the time, because I was about to give this ball to her because, again, power dynamics, structures, she was popular, I wasn't. And
you were not worthy.
I was not worthy, apparently, of having something new and shiny.
Yeah.
And it was so rare that I had something new and shiny, because, again, usually all the popular kids would take them. You'd think that I was growing up in America, but I wasn't. In this moment, somebody else stood up for me, and I'm so grateful. I have no memory of who they were. Mm-hmm. Could have been an adult, could have been another, kid. And they were like, well, why can't you take one of the old ones? And
to her?
Yeah. And she was like, well, I don't want it. And so in this moment, and I remember I gave her the softball.
You still gave it to her?
I still gave it to her, because she threatened to withhold, I think at that point we were friendly, which is why she felt she was able to come and take something. And she said, if you don't give me that, I will not be friends with you. So transactional relationships are something that really comes up for me quite early on. And so it was this message that in this moment I had something, someone saw that they could take it.
Yeah.
And they deserve better than I did.
Yeah.
It was wild. And so, when I kind of look back at that, it was this whole, if you don't agree with me, if you don't give me what I want, I will withhold something that I know that you want from me.
Yeah.
And that was a similar theme with, the they who will not be named.
Yes. What was your term for that? The something caregiver or no?
Oh, the non-related caregiver. Yeah. And so there was very much a push. So anytime that I tried to say no, anytime I tried to establish my own boundaries, could have been anything from, no, I don't want to kiss you on the lips when I say goodbye or hello. No, I don't want to hold your hand in public because I'm a teenager. Yeah. Any kind of resistance, any kind of pulling away
was punished
in a way that was, well, okay, I'm going to double down and I'm going to make it worse for you. And so it was very molding and it was very claustrophobic. And when you're a kid and you don't have that power, it's so like the disabling of your own autonomous needs. And when all of that's taken away and all of it's stripped away from you, it feels, I have no words for how it feels.
And so you learned from a very young age that it's just easier to put your needs second.
100%.
And to bend to someone else's will.
Yeah.
And then you've carried that through your life, like into adult relationships, into other things, even into work. Like I remember some of the situations at work, it's like, babe, that's not okay.
Yeah, not current work.
Not current work, but other jobs that you've, had when you're younger. And it's like, is that okay for you? And it's like, no, it's really not. But working through that process to actually, for you to feel comfortable that actually I can leave this. I do have power. I do have agency. And it is okay to walk away. It is okay to state my needs. And if they choose not to listen, that's on them. But something better will come.
And I think there was also, and whether I think it's mixed from societal, it's also a generational message that comes through too. And I think women get it in particular, is that if you ask for too much, you'll, and again, there'll be a later episode on too much in season 2.
Yeah.
But if you ask for too much, you are considered too much. You are considered too difficult.
Too hard.
And people will abandon you.
Yeah.
And that could be anything from work, deciding, no, you're too difficult, you're asking for too much money, even if you're asking for your worth, or showing how smart you are. Half your worth.
That's another story we'll cover in too much, but
And, or even it could be in relationships and just that fear, because for some reason there's still an undercurrent in society that in order to be somebody, you need to be with somebody else.
Yeah.
Regardless of who that person is and how they treat you.
It's better to be with somebody than alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have learned it is better to be alone than to be with somebody who makes you miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny as you sort of talk about this and being so open and raw, I guess, about what this word means.
Thanks, Brene Brown, for vulnerability. Yeah. It is a strength.
Shout out. Is sharing that, and it, and I reflect on my own journey with this too, right? And for me, like, I was largely the good kid, right? That was my role in the family. Like, I was largely the easy one, the compliant one. I would follow the rules. I love me a rule. I love me
until
a
it doesn't
rule.
make sense.
Until it doesn't make sense, it's not logical or it's unfair, and that's the difficult will kick in. But, there were certain times where I would literally just erupt, right? And it's like I would have these moments and these big moments, and I would really dig my heels in, and people wouldn't know how to deal with that, because it's like, you're the one that we don't have to think about. Like, you're the compliant one. You're the one that does the right thing, almost at a cost to yourself all the time. And so, for me, I would have those moments. And as I reflect on those moments in my life, it was literally, if there was an expectation of me that I was actually unable to meet, right? And it would get too much and it would just build up. And usually it was related to like executive functioning demands and stuff like that, and, or social demands, and actually, no, I'm not going to that party. No, I'm not going to that thing. No, I'm not leaving the house, right? Or sensory needs, like, I am going to wear a mini skirt and gumboots all year round. You should try it, people. Don't judge. Even in winter in the middle of Melbourne, right? It was my thing, but I had very clear, so and I remember like the kindergarten teachers saying to Mum, like, she can't come to kindergarten. And she's like, she dresses herself. Bless you, Mum. And the kindergarten teachers being like, she shouldn't. Mum goes, I'll pack a change of clothes. You give it a crack. And they're like, she's wearing gumboots and miniskirts. Like, you know, it's like we cannot do this, right? And so there were certain things that I would be really fixed or, you know, to use the diagnostic words, rigid with, and be really difficult. And certain things are a hard pass. But I realized a lot of that was actually there's an expectation I couldn't meet, or it was a protection, it was a management strategy, you know, to keep myself feeling safe and feeling comfortable. But in those moments, right, when I was advocating for myself however I could with the tools at the time, again, it was seen that what I was asking for was
too much,
unreasonable. Yeah, and I was being difficult.
Although I still remember and occasionally tell people the story of your meltdown on the way to, you were 5 or 6 or something like that, and you were on the way to school.
Oh, yes.
Just outside the school, you had an epic meltdown.
Yeah.
Where you got on the ground and you started banging your fists against the ground.
And forehead. I did that quite routinely as well. Yeah.
And your mum was so horrified that she got down on the ground
and did the same thing. And I was so embarrassed I got up and walked away. And yeah, and I think for her it was like, I'm not sure if it was horrified, but I think she just had a morning of like getting 3 kids ready for school and getting one dropped at kinder and one dropped here in the pram with the baby and, you know, the 18-month in it. And it's been a morning like today times 3, you know, on your own. And it's like, yeah, you get to that point where actually, you know what, I want a tantrum too. And and she said she did it because, you know, she wanted me to see what it looked like. I think she actually did it. It's what she actually, you know, what she needed in the moment, you know, as well. Because, you know, at times it can actually be too much. And it's so hard as a parent when all this is going on and you're faced with a child that is melting down or is having difficult behaviours, you know, even being really needy or really whiny, and you're trying to adult and you're trying to do all the grown-up things and manage them and regulate yourself. And it's just, you feel it like building up like a volcano. And it's like that moment to take a step back and actually go, okay, like what's really going on here?
Yeah, because nothing's too difficult until it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
we were having a great morning till about 7:48.
And it really, really is, because, you know, overwhelm and overstimulation put things on our plate and we pile them up and we pile them up and we pile them up. And we don't actually realize how much we have on our plate because we can't necessarily see everything because it might be under, you know, different layers. But it's that moment, it's that crack where we just, wouldn't it be nice to just have a room, have a place where we could literally just go have a meltdown? I mean, I kind of think we are in one right now. But, you know, soundproofed walls, scream, cry, throw things, you know, like I've been to the break room a couple of times as well, where I've been able to smash a whole bunch of random crockery and that sort of thing. And you can also write. They give you pens.
You can write on the walls. And stuff,
no, you can write on the plates.
Oh, and then
and then you put them on top of a traffic cone and you line it up and you smash it with a baseball bat.
Fun.
It was so much fun. You can bring in your own stuff too if you've got an old TV or whatever that you want to, you know,
dispose of.
Could be like that scene from Office Space where they take the printer into the middle of the field and they just go to town because that printer was the bane of their existence.
But having that moment to just like, it's enough, and just like letting it all out. Yeah.
Because our brains respond to urgency.
Yeah.
They respond to pressure. But it, just like anything, too much urgency, too much pressure all at the one time. It's just, there is no coming back from that, you know, until you've had the ability to be able to take some time out to be able to regulate. Because if you decompress, there is a reason why it is so important.
And it's really interesting, like, as you say that too, and I think about my own, like, unmasking journey and getting comfortable with my neurodiversity has been finding the right pace in life, you know, and finding the pace that's right for me, but also finding in a lot of places, like, what's actually right for me. Am I doing this because it's an expectation? You know, anything with the word should in it now for me, the minute someone says the word should, or the minute I hear the word should in my head, it's like a stop, pause, like, this is your moment to question. Because if it, like, it's this weird word, right? And there probably is like a whole sub-episode I could do on it, right? But, like, if you were going to do it, you just do it, right? The word is done. Like, I've done it. I've done the thing. If I wanted to do it, I would say want. If I needed it, I would say need. But should is this halfway house where it's like literally there's a disconnect between action and expectation. And it's like, you know, the minute I hear that, you're having a giggle, like another T-shirt.
No, but it's not just that. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
The list of shoulds, the list of shoulds.
I will let you finish
and
then I'll tell my story.
But like, yeah, all of the shoulds. And it's like, you know, the minute I hear that, I'm like, well, whose expectation is that? You know, so some nights if you're just feeling hard, you know what, yeah, we're going to grab a picnic rug and we're going to eat out of lunchboxes in a park surrounded by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because why not? Right? Yep. Like if that's what I need in the moment, you know, I'm not going to commit to doing more than one social event or thing, outing, leaving of my home on a day.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not great for me. So big parts of that has been coming back to, yeah, what is it that I need? But also as well, like, yeah, honouring who I am and honouring that pace and setting the right pace so things don't build up and bottle up.
Mm. Yeah,
what's your giggles?
Oh,
I love this.
So shoulds I find very much in line with can't.
Yes.
So when we were growing up, you could never, ever tell Freya that she can't do something. And so we were, I was
Fair.
17, you were 18, I think, just 18.
Yeah.
And we were looking at universities. And so we decided to go up to Canberra for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was solo. So we literally jumped on a bus. It was the red eye bus.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into Canberra sort of in the morning. And I remember kind of stepping off the bus thinking I was in a completely different planet. And we stayed at this cheap budget motel. Yeah. And I remember that night we had what we later referred to as the beige meal. Yeah. Which I think was just white bread, chicken loaf,
Philly cream cheese, and salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah, and
in a sandwich.
White wine.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll focus on the sandwich. Try the sandwich, people. So cheap white bread, Philly, salt and vinegar chips, and it was like and chicken loaf. So you got the umami, you got the salty, you got the crunchy, you got the sour, and it's like we're going to have that this afternoon. I think we're going to have to do it. But yeah, it was amazing. So we're doing all these things. Yeah.
So we were walking around Canberra getting to know the place. And then as we were walking around, I think we'd gone to the War Memorial. And then as we were walking, we ran into a woman. We said, oh, how far is the Carillon? And it was this sort of bell tower
with bells. It's a nice park, though. It's like a really pretty
park. It was very pretty.
Yeah.
And the woman said, I think she looked at our shoes, which were, 90s patent sort of
the plasticky
flip-flops.
Yeah, early 2000s.
Terrible. Yeah. And she said, oh, it's about 2 kilometres from here, but you can't walk there. So as she started to walk away, I think Freya said quite loudly, yeah, let's go there because you can't tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got there, I think with blisters.
So many blisters.
And then I think we had to find our way back.
Yeah, because we also didn't have money, right? So like to buy a bus ticket or to taxi, like we'd done this. Again, we hadn't really thought about the plan beforehand, but we'd gone to Canberra and we were like, yes. And we also decided by that point that we were going to go there for university next year. So we never crossed our minds to go, let's take a step back from this and go, we're not saying no, never. Mm-hmm.
We could
just do this in 3 months' time when we actually move here.
We just maybe shouldn't do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Or do it on a day where we've got money for a bus. So we end up walking the 2.5 kilometres to the Carillon, and then I think it was like 4.5 kilometres back to our accommodation.
I ended up walking back in barefoot.
Yeah, we both carrying our shoes in the door. But yeah, it's quite funny. So yeah, those moments I can appear quite like when there's a goal, right, and there's an expectation. That's probably another time, and I'm like, yes, locked on. At work, they call me the happy little steamroller. And I think one of the feedback on my performance reviews one time was, it's great that you can get things done. Your next development opportunity is to not leave a pile of bodies in your wake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So apparently, I'm not doing that right. But yeah, when you get fixed on that, that's the outcome. And I know now that's monotropism. And so, if anyone listening along, monotropism is this amazing ability that we have, mostly as autistic people. It does front up for others, but that ability to fix on one thing, right? So it might be and to focus on that one area. So we focus quite deeply. So it means we can have the deep passions, we can have the hyperfixations, everything else falls away. It can be that goal, and it can lead to very much all or nothing kind of thinking, as opposed to polytropic, which is brain structures in more neurotypical brains. So you can focus on lots of things at once. So again, like times I can appear difficult is when I've got that goal that I'm focused on, right, or that outcome, and everything else is just a distraction. Everything else is just noise. Or if I'm in the middle of a process, right, like cooking, right? I'm focused on getting that done, like, and I'm deeply focused on that. Any interruptions to that, there might be a life-threatening injury that's incurred by somebody because, you know, in my brain, it's like I'm going through steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or like changing gears on a car, right? If I brake in a manual car, if I get interrupted, then I can't just go back to I was in fourth gear, I was at step 4. I need to go, I was in 1, I was in 2. Have I done 3? Have I done 4? You know, like I really need to start again. And it's almost like a coping strategy or like a management piece for me. That, yeah, when I'm pulled out of something, it's very, very difficult to get back into it. So I don't know if that rates for you as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I can't say it.
Task switching. Task switching.
Gosh, it's like one of those tongue twisters that you can really say 10 times fast. Task switching for me is difficult. I would find that there would be, you know, periods where I was supposed to meet you, for example. You know, when we were growing up, I'd say, "Oh, look, I'll catch the bus and I'll meet you at your place at 12 p.m." And I'd get there
under the clocks at Flinders Street.
Under the clocks at Flinders
Street, because we didn't have mobile phones back then to message and say we're running late or whatever. Yeah.
So there would be times where I'd rock up half an hour, 45 minutes late, and I wouldn't be able to communicate with you because I was on a bus or a train. But I would get to a point where I could not leave the house because there was this fear of forgetting something or, heaven forbid, leaving the hair straighteners on or something along those lines. And so, you know, I would have the time blind. So I'd start a task thinking that I'd have enough time to finish it. And then I'd realize that I'd be running late to meet you.
Yeah. And
then I'd find that it would be like walking into a room and having this jolt and being like, okay. And then walking into another room and being like, okay, what's going on? What am I doing? And I wasn't able to sort of put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And
so it's like, I have to finish the task that I started. I have to do that. You couldn't shift out of that to do other things. Yeah.
And then leave the house also felt like a huge deal at the time too. Yeah. Because leaving the house meant, well, first of all, it was leaving safety. I had everything I needed at home. But then it was also the, you know, catching a bus and, you know, there was all the steps involved.
We also had to like lock up the house, you know, put hair straighteners away, make sure you're not going to set fire to the house. You know, have I got my wallet? Have I got my train pass?
Yeah.
Have I got a bottle of water?
Do I have my concession card?
Yeah. Do I have my sunscreen? Do I have, you know, all of these things, which are then like, you know, you look back at later and go, just make a list and tick off the list and carry it with you. But in the moment, it's all these things that are like scattered around and like, I need to do it. And then I can't remember I've done it and rechecking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was this, and it actually reminds me of a similar story as well. And I thought that this kind of piece of logistical problem solving was actually just absolutely genius. And there was a woman who was really struggling to make it to anywhere on time, whether it's work or going out with friends or even leave the house, because she was terrified that she'd left the hairdryer on. And so she'd leave the house and then come back and check, and she'd do this, 4 or 5 times. So she was leaving earlier in the morning, but she still was convinced that the hair straightener was on no matter how many times she went back to check. And so, she'd been written up at work with warnings. She had friends that were just like, we just can't deal with you. You're too difficult. This is all too hard, da-da-da. And she'd gone through a numerous amount of mental health professionals in order to try and understand so that she could just leave the house with this confidence that the hairdryer wasn't on.
Yeah. And
eventually one psychologist that she went to said, just take the hairdryer with you.
Love that.
And from that moment, every time she thought, well, is the hairdryer on? She'd look in her bag and be like, no, it's not. So she could check her bag 100 times before she got to work.
Yeah.
But she would know that the hairdryer wasn't on. Now, that apparently split the medical community, because half of them thought it was amazing. And the other half said, well, you haven't actually solved the problem. The attention will just go to something else. But once you can create a pragmatic and logical solution that somebody can do and then repeat, even if you're thinking maybe that you've left the oven on or something along those lines, take the oven knob,
You just end up going to work with like a shopping trolley with your whole house provisions in it.
But or have, or even set up a camera to be able to look at the oven or whatever the case may be. Like, we're in an age of technology now where there are so many amazing solutions and out of the box solutions. But even if somebody might consider you to be more difficult for having that reassurance that, yes, I am safe. Yes, I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And yes, I can check to see if, everything at home is okay. When I go away, I have awful feelings that something bad might happen. And for me, it's the feeling of dread.
Yeah.
That hits home more than anything else. So from a practical, pragmatic solution, I say, okay, well, what am I actually worried about? What's let's go catastrophic.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the worst thing that could happen?
And what if you play that game and you're not homeless or dead by the end of it, you're just not trying hard enough.
Apparently.
Let's feed the beast.
So I look at, okay, well, what are the things I can control?
Yeah.
Okay, I can control whether or not I take photos of certain things to know that they're off. I've got hair straighteners that now turn off after an hour, which is fantastic. I can, set up cameras to, watch the driveway and things like that. And I can set, timers in the house or whatever the case may be. And so those are the things I can control. The things I can influence is, I can talk to the neighbors, I can do all that sort of stuff. And the things I can't control is whatever happens when I leave the house.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. And so even if it doesn't necessarily change the outcome, it's just you feel more comfortable
Absolutely.
in the process of doing it.
Yeah.
And again, that's like whatever, you do you, right? Like if you've got these management strategies, you've got coping strategies, you've got accommodations that are in place to help life be easier for you, they're not harming anybody else. You do you.
Go forth and conquer.
Absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as you say that too, right, around that story with seeing the psychologist and, and the dividing of the internet. And it makes me think too about, with the narrative of difficult, right? And this is no disrespect to any, diagnosing professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever. It's the nature of the process that we go through, and it's the process by which diagnoses are made. And it really reinforces the message that we are difficult in that process, no matter how amazing the person is that's doing the assessments. It's the wording of them, it's the criteria that's in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual 5, which is what's used to identify neurodivergent types, so whether that's, dyslexia, praxia, autism, ADHD, it can go on all day, Tourette's, OCD, all of these different things that can sit under that umbrella. The language is based on a medical model of disability and diagnoses, right? So what that means is basically it's written in a way that there is a norm and then there's deviations to that norm that are causing discomfort or problems. It means there's a lot of power that sits with medical professionals and, the outcome off the back of it, comes with limitations and things you can't do. And then off the back of it, it's, the goal is to get you fixed and or normal. So the example I use, right, is if I break my leg, it works for that, right? My leg was not broken. It is now broken, right? I need an x-ray, right? I need some scanning. I need some testing to tell my leg is broken. I then need a cast or something, or I might need surgery. Again, the medical professionals do all that. I then am restricted by what I can do until it's fixed. So I may not be able to weight bear. I may need to use a wheelchair or crutches. I can't go swimming, all of these different things that work through. Then when I get the cast off, I need physiotherapy and I need intensive therapy to return me to a state of normal or close to normal functioning I can. So it works beautifully in that sense, but in neurodivergency and it really struggles. And I'm a much bigger fan of the social model of disability, which is it's more focused on the environment. It's focused on the things we can do. It's the power and the agency sitting, with the individual. And it's the idea that there isn't really necessarily like a norm to work to. So, if the task was shopping, right, you put me in a shopping centre, I'm acutely disabled, right? I really struggle. The crowds, the noises, the lights, the busyness, the confusion.
The sheer amount of choice.
Right? It is paralyzing for me, and I have pretty interesting reactions within my body and anxiety responses. And 9 times out of 10, I will come home with not what I actually needed to get in the first place, right? So I won't actually be able to execute the task. You put me in front of a laptop or on a smartphone and online shopping, and I will be done in 3 minutes flat and have everything delivered by tomorrow, exactly as I need it. So if the task is shopping, it's not my brain that's the disabled bit. It's the environments and the processes and the structures that sit around me. And when we go through the diagnosis process, and why I'm raising this is a lot of the language in there is around deficit, right? And it's deficit language. And I'm not going to read out the specific criteria because it is quite pathologizing, and, you know, not necessarily all that helpful. But here are some words that are used: fixed, restricted, persistent, interferes with, impairment, limitations. So there's all these quasi words for difficult that are embedded in our diagnostic criteria. So for me to be autistic, I need to visit fixed and repetitive behaviours that inhibit functioning or daily life.
Wow.
So it's in that process of doing this and discovering who we are, and a lot of parents as well that I work with, whether, you know, post-diagnostic support, either for them or the kids, is it's reknitting this narrative to actually go, well, it's not difficult. But the criteria and everything, it's like our needs and our expectations and what we want are wrong or too much or too hard. And so that's a really interesting thing, I think, as well, because often we start the diagnosis process because we're observing some behaviours, we're observing some things that are hard, we're observing friction, and then we go through this process that then reinforces that, that is problematic and that we are the problem in that. And again, that's not the people that are doing the work. But it's the process and the nature itself. I call it the diagnosis deficit trap, right? But then you start to see yourself as all the things that you aren't, rather than seeing yourself as all the things that you are. So I find that really interesting and a real reinforcement of difficult. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that
rant over.
That I mean, that absolutely hits me. And obviously, in the first episode of labels, you know, we're covering the fact that there's so much that even the DSM just needs to catch up on. And by the time, you know, the next generation and the next generation come, it'll be always something evolving. Different.
Yeah.
And so I think the best we can do, I think, in those circumstances is where we can reframe deficit difference.
Yep. And also don't read the report. You don't actually need to read the report. You don't need to share the report. You can just get the letter.
I did read my report. Yeah, which wasn't all that bad. I found my school reports to be more confronting.
Yeah.
That was My current vision of what I was as a student did not match up.
My did not align. View. These two things did not align. But yeah, we have those options, right? And to think about it and to reframe it differently. But also as well to note that when we are noticing difficulty, we are noticing resistance, that there's probably going to be a reason for it. Yeah.
100%. When it comes to difficulty as well as a term, you can just choose not to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then that difficult label comes up because you're not playing the game. You're not towing the line. You're not being a team player. You know, create your own rules, create your own game. If you do things with enough confidence and enough assurity, most of the time you won't also be questioned either.
Yeah. And it's that piece of going, again, different does not equal difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you're giving yourself permission to colour outside the lines, you're giving yourself permission to do things differently, you're giving yourself permission not to play the game or to play a different game. You know, it's that, actually, no, that's not being difficult. That's just being authentic to who I am.
Yep. And not buying into, I'm obstructing somebody. I'm not, you know, I'm all the words that you were calling out before as a part of the medical diagnosis. Just because it's medical doesn't necessarily mean that it's always right in the sense of the terms and the wording that they use. Where a lot of women will go through things like perimenopause, but they'll be labelled anxious or depressed. I mean, those are symptoms of perimenopause, but
something else going on.
There's something else going on. So I think that's probably just a really nice way to round it and say that just because the medical field has labelled you with something, it doesn't mean that there's not another symptom or another need or something else that needs to be investigated in order to understand yourself better or understand your kids better.
Yeah. And huge amounts of us too over our lives, I think, have been diagnosed as like generalised anxiety disorder or other things going on. And it's actually a neurodiversity that's sitting underneath it. And it's tricky to do, right, to work out what's happening.
Have you tried exercise?
Yeah. all the things.
That was a favorite of mine, hearing that.
Yeah, not ideal, and does elicit a difficult response. The minute you said that, I was like, oh, put the middle finger down. But yeah, for sure. And so it's probably a good point to pause for that episode.
Absolutely.
And invite everyone to reflect on, what does that look like for you? Where does this hit for you? What are your stories and experiences? We'd love to know. And then, next time we'll come back and look at how we reframe and think about difficult a little bit differently. And if there's a kinder, more compassionate view.
Yep, some things will be easy peasy lemon squeezy, and some things will be difficult lemon difficult.
And we might even share some tools in the spice jar as well. So until then, stay spicy.
Stay spicy.
You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast
with Hanna and Freya, besties, brains, and more.
If you've enjoyed listening, follow us on YouTube or your favourite podcast app and share it with someone else who knows the sting of a sticky label.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay spicy, stay wonderful.